All right, Gentlemen Badass Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we've got a special guest, Rob Hufford. Rob, how are you today?
Great, Josh. And yourself?
I'm excellent. Thanks for coming in. We've got Mick Doyle with us, as always. Hello. And Mick's enjoying a nice cup of tea. I've got some water, and we just finished up with some barbecue. So, Rob, you are internationally famous. So let's just start. Let's get the 800-pound gorilla out of the room. Why are you internationally famous?
So I broke some major protocol, and I gave Prince Harry a giant bear hug while competing for Team US at the Invictus Games this past October.
Okay. So tell us, how did that story go down?
Sure. So
It happened on a boat, right?
Yeah. It did. Yeah. So I was competing, and one of the events that I did was sailing, and we'll get into it more later. I'm Air Force, and we don't sail. So I was a clear choice for the sailing team. I was also the biggest guy on the 70-man roster, so another positive choice there. But
glide through the water, do you?
Oh, yeah. Definitely, yeah. No, but so we're on the water, and I'd kind of been joking that if I ever had a chance to, I was going to hug Prince Harry. And we'd finished our race, and we were headed back towards the docks. And from behind us, we hear this voice just yelling, "Hey, which one of you is Ryan? Which one of you is Ryan?" And we're like, "Oh, whatever." And we finally look over, and we're like, "Oh, fuck, that's Prince Harry." All right. And we're like, "Oh, it's this little guy here who's driving the boat." And he's like, "Which one of you is Ryan?" We're like, "It's this dude right here." And he's like, "Cool." And then he goes, "I want to talk to you." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And I look at him, I go, "Hey, can I get a hug later?" And he kind of looks at me and he goes, "Well, how about right now?" I'm like, "Well, one, we're on two different boats. Two, we're about 20 yards apart. And yeah, all right, cool." And he goes, "Come on over." So his skipper steered his boat towards us. Our skipper steered our boat towards him, and we got close enough, and that we locked up, grabbed hold of each other, whatever. I don't know the proper term.
You more than grabbed hold of him. You picked him up off the ground.
Boat-wise, yeah. But then so I jumped over, and I gave him a hug. And I'm a big guy, and I like to give big hugs. And yeah, I picked him up, gave him a good squeeze. He wasn't expecting it, but I mean, the reaction of everyone else on the boat was pretty darn good.
Did he have a security detail on the boat?
I'm not sure if a security detail was on the boat or not.
I'm sure there was a sniper rifle on you somewhere.
Yeah. Well, so there was two sniper teams on top of the Opera House, because we were in the harbor right in front of the Opera House, in front of the Sydney Harbor Bridge there. But there were two teams on top of the Opera House, and there was at least one, I think, two helicopters flying overhead. So I assume I had numerous rounds headed my way if I did something too foggy.
Yeah. And the snipers are going, "I got this shot. This guy's an easy target."
Yeah. Well, the best part about, no, not the best part, but a fun little detail or follow-on to that one, through my work with the Air Force Wounded Warriors, the Invictus Games, and then the adaptive sporting community, at the Warrior Games every year, the Brits, the UK, sends over a team, a contingent. And I got to know at last year's games, I got to know one of their members, who was the special detail for Princess Diana when Prince Harry was born.
Oh, wow.
And so I was talking to him a little bit, later after the games and stuff, and I was like, "Hey, I just wanted to make sure, I didn't piss you guys off. You know him from a long, long time ago? Or, we're good, right?" And he's like, "Hell no, we're awesome." He goes, "You actually won me 10 quid. I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I had a bet at the bar I was at, and I said, if anyone does it, it'll be him. And as soon as the storyline came across, I said your name, and they're like, 'No way.'"
Nice. So didn't you touch the royal baby bump too?
No. Let's get that officially on the record.
On the record.
I was coerced into saying that.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
No, I did give Princess Meghan, or the Duchess, whatever. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know her or their terms.
Regal title.
Yes, but no, I did the Duchess of Sussex. I did give her a hug, but it was a very gentle, light, tender hug, where I didn't even touch her. And then they were like, Prince Harry was like, "Oh, be careful," and like kind of like motioned towards her belly, and I was like, "Oh no, I know," but like I didn't like touch it.
Yeah. Okay. So it was a motion, but not a touch.
Right.
I got you.
Right.
Okay.
And, yeah. So
that's probably good.
yeah,
Because that probably would have earned the sniper.
Yeah, that would have definitely gotten me shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In my neighborhood in Ireland, there's a lot of my friends wouldn't mind if you'd have hugged Prince Harry maybe just a little harder.
Yeah.
And a little longer. Nah.
Oh. So then after that, what was when did you realize this thing was going viral? And what did that look like for you? You were on
viral?
ET, I saw.
Yeah, so viral, I don't know. I mean, it was a good 2-3 hours probably before I was able to actually get back and have my phone connect because I wasn't on data plan down there. I just had to get to Wi-Fi. But as soon as I walked into the dining hall and connected to my Wi-Fi, my phone just started blowing up. And I was like, oh, okay. And like all my friends that were there and all my friends back here were starting to post this photo that my fiance took. And like it got shared through other channels, and it just got shared and shared and shared and shared and shared. And then the next thing I know, our PA officer, he's calling me up, and he's like, "Hey, we have an interview scheduled for you for tonight. Entertainment Tonight would like to speak with you." I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure, whatever." Man, sure enough,
You went viral.
Now, Prince Harry was there because doesn't he have a hand in putting the whole Invictus game? Was the Invictus Games his idea,
Yes.
or he had something to do with it?
Yes, so Prince Harry is the originator, the creator, the all magnificent of the Invictus Games. He attended, as I mentioned, the Brits send a contingent to the Warrior Games every year. He attended and watched the Warrior Games a few years back and realized that the healing and the support that goes into that event for the wounded veteran community was amazing, and that it shouldn't be just a 3 or 4 country event. It should be more. And this year we had 17 or 18 countries in total attend, and it was just shy of 600 athletes total, I believe, that were there.
Okay.
I mean, some countries, the U.S. had 70 athletes, whereas Afghanistan brought 6. So it's not every country is represented equally, but it's an array of adaptive sports. So there's everything from archery, and where you'll see guys who are blind who are shooting archery, or they don't have legs or they don't have arms, but they're still shooting archery. Wheelchair basketball, seated volleyball, any sport that you can adapt to allow anybody to play it, anyone to remain active, can be considered an adaptive sport. And there's just a few that are. They had 9 this year, 10 this year that were competed.
Okay.
Golf was not competed, but it was there as a venue.
And now, did the athletes that compete, are you guys doing multiple sports while you're there?
Most of us are doing multiple sports, yes. So I competed in powerlifting, which is bench press only, but it's Paralympic bench press. I did.
So your legs are
my legs are strapped down to a
Right.
table, yes. And then rowing, so it's on a land-based rower on an erg Concept 2. And then I did shot put and discus. I wanted to do the long jump and the 100-meter dash, but my coaches wouldn't let me. And then I did the sailing team. I was on the sailing team.
Okay. Awesome. And so just to clarify, the Invictus Games is for wounded soldiers specifically. So you can take part in something even if you aren't. Does everybody that takes part is injured in some way, or can you take part as long as you do the adaptive sport? How does that work?
So it's Invictus and Warrior Games are both for the veteran warrior community.
Okay.
So you have to have served your country.
Okay.
And then be a serious or very seriously wounded, injured, or ill individual to qualify.
Gotcha.
Now, whereas the Paralympics, anybody can do the Paralympics.
Okay.
But the Invictus Games and the Warrior Games are specifically for the veteran, the warrior community.
Gotcha. And so you competed in bench press, and you ended up placing in bench press, correct?
Yes, I took bronze in the bench press.
Okay. What'd you press?
I put up 190 kilos. I knew you'd like that, Mick.
Yep.
I don't know how many stones I am. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So times that 2.2.
Okay. 190 is like 400 pounds, basically?
418.
With no legs?
Correct.
That's insane.
3 Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
The guy that won it, he's a beast. He's from the UK, and he put up 206.
Wow.
And he currently holds the record for the para deadlift. So basically, it's a chair that you sit in, and you just pick the bar up from the chair off the ground.
Wow.
There's no leg to it. It's
Right.
all back.
Wow.
You know what he lifted for that?
500K, I believe.
Jeez.
So a little over 1,000 pounds.
Wow.
Yes.
Crazy. So then, so you do a lot of work with the Wounded Warrior. So I'm seeing a Wounded Warrior T-shirt or a polo that you're wearing.
So this is my Air Force Wounded Warrior program shirt,
Okay.
and I do with the program. It's a Department of the Air Force run program. With the program, I act as an athlete, an ambassador, and a mentor.
Okay.
And hopefully in the near future, a coach.
There you go.
So as an ambassador, I'm trained to tell my story. I'm trained to be able to go into an environment, whether that be with other military members, a veteran community, or a 100% civilian entity, off base, off installation, whatever, and talk with them to share my story, to raise awareness for the visible and invisible wound initiatives, and then as well as what the Air Force Wounded Warrior program is, what it does, how it helps individuals.
Okay. So what's that story? Can you share it with us?
Sure. So I am a medically retired, hence the beard. And I know you listening on the radio can't tell this, but I have a rather thick.
We have a YouTube channel. They can see it on YouTube.
Oh, well.
Yep. Check it out on YouTube. You can see the beard.
But no, so I am retired from the Air Force as a civil engineering officer. So I went to the Air Force Academy and graduated in 2006. While there, I played football and threw shot put, and then graduated with a civil engineering degree and became a civil engineering officer, where I learned how to run a base in terms of the same way the Department of Public Works would run a city.
Okay.
So any type of construction or facility maintenance or utility work. We also own, in the C Squadron in the Air Force, we also own the bomb squadron, the bomb techs, the fire department, the housing office, the environmental office. So we're a pretty broad spectrum of what we have to know and do. And as an officer, one of my responsibilities is to know enough about everything that I could lead the troops who are the experts in their specific career, in their specific field. So I served for 9 years. At the 6-year mark, I was diagnosed with complex partial seizures, which, since I had numerous of them, I was labeled epileptic.
How long were you having these seizures? Did you even know you were having them? Or?
So Mick, I knew I was having something, but I wasn't sure what. For about 2 years at that point in time, when I was diagnosed, I had been having episodes, quote unquote, where I would just get kind of fuzzy. I would get kind of dizzy.
What age are you at this point?
27.
Wow.
So I would be sitting at a computer. I would be driving. I'd be whatever. And I would just get kind of like, and 30 seconds later, I was fine. And then one July evening in 2011, I had gone on a motorcycle, a full afternoon motorcycle rally ride, and came home. It was dehydrated from the heat, not the alcohol. And it is not safe to ride and drink.
Yes.
Boys and girls, remain safe out there on 2 and 4 wheels. No, so it was a hot day, and I was in full legs and full upper body protective gear. And I was hot. It was a long day, and I couldn't cool down. And so I finally got into bed and was able to fall asleep. And the next thing I know, it's an hour or so later, and the fire department is in my bedroom, and they're like grabbing my wrist and taking my pulse, looking at me, and they're asking me all these questions. And I finally look at them, I'm like, what are you doing here in my bedroom? And I look over, and my wife at the time has just this horrified look on her face, like, oh my gosh, and then I look at one of the guys, and I'm like, well, hey, Brad, those pants make your ass look really good. And they were like, all right, he's back. And I I had just bought them brand new bunker gear that got in that day. And like it was his first day on the job with those pants. I was like, all right. So like, but no, he's good. All right. Got tested and they cleared me to go overseas. So I moved to Portugal a couple weeks later, was having a blast, but then was still having these dizzy spells. What we learned and what I learned after that was that night I had a grand mal seizure. Mm-hmm. And that was considered my transition seizure from my simple partial to my complex partial seizures. And ultimately, it was about another year before I finally convinced the doctors that I wasn't okay, that I wasn't good, and that I was able to get sent to Walter Reed, which is it's the Naval Hospital, Bethesda Walter Reed, in Maryland. And they diagnosed me with complex partial seizures, and they said, you're having about 12 a day. And to fix this, we're going to have to put you on some drugs. I started with the one drug, and I got up to about 150% of what the recommended FDA limit is before they said, okay, we're going to put you on a second drug because you're still having seizures. So I got onto the second drug, and I got up to the recommended limit on that one, and the seizures stopped. And they're like, okay, good. No, that's a really manly dose of drugs. The drugs are going to kill you before the seizures do if you have to stay on this for long term. With what you're having and where it's at in the brain, because at this point in time, I'd been MRI'd and CAT scanned and this and that and out the wazoo. They're like, with what you're having and where it's at, we want to take it out. Excuse me? And like, and the lady that's telling me this, she was the head of the neurosurgery department at the time, but she's this very tiny little naval officer and very smart woman, just very delicate, which I would expect you need to be a brain surgeon. Yeah. But she's like, yeah, we're just going to take it out. And she was very matter of fact. I'm like, you're scaring me.
Yeah, you're going to remove part of my brain?
Okay. So she went through how the process or how the procedure works, what the surgery does. And all right, let's do this. So in January of 2013, I went in. It was the day after the presidential inauguration that year. Went in and had a piece of my skull removed, and they implanted an 8x8 electrical grid onto my brain. Didn't take anything out except for that piece of skull. And then they woke me back up, and over the course of the next couple of days, they did a couple of different types of testing on me. One, they shocked my brain directly from that grid, and then just to see how my body would react and what parts of the brain being stimulated by that electrical stimulus would affect what parts of my body. And then the other part was they took me off my drugs and said, okay, now we need you to have some seizures. We want to see what part of the brain is having seizures. After they had shocked me enough and seen enough of my seizure activity, they said, great, now we're going to go in and take it out. So a week or so after they put the first procedure in, and they went in and took out basically a little bit larger, a little bit longer than a tube of chapstick from my brain. Just plucked it right out. It was close enough to the surface that they were able to pull it out, no problem. Sewed me back up and said, all right, on your way.
Crazy.
And then I had to go through the medical review process, and that was enough for them to say, you are unfit for duty. You can no longer serve as an active duty member in uniform in the Air Force.
Okay.
Which that was hard. That was a really, really tough time.
Did you see yourself as a career?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I wanted to do it, not since I was a kid. And that's one of the things I like to share with individuals, especially when I'm talking to like an Air Force unit, is I went to the academy to play football. Okay. I had zero desire to be in the military at all. During my time at the academy, I learned that it was more about the service. It was more about the giving back, the honor of being able to wear the uniform than it was for Saturday afternoons. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed my time on Saturday afternoons and had a blast doing it, but it was more than that. And Saturdays stopped coming, but life continued after graduation.
Okay.
So none of these health issues showed up the whole time you're playing football?
None. That we know of.
I mean, I got to kind of ask, but did you ever suffer concussions or anything like that?
Mick,
that you know of?
I have never been officially diagnosed with a concussion.
Yeah.
But I played center.
Okay.
And we played against a lot of odd fronts. So yes, I have never officially been diagnosed as having it had. Yes.
I had to ask.
Yeah,
it's okay, Mick. But no, yeah. So, but I did ask that question, and then because they took out part of my brain, I had them also run the tests on it for the tau proteins, just like Junior Seau and a lot of the other individuals. Junior Seau had killed himself a couple months prior to my diagnosis, so it was heavily in the news, and I was like, okay. And like when they were diagnosing me, I was like, hey, we need to test for this tau protein thing. And they're like, well, to do that, we need to biopsy the brain. I'm like, great, do it. And they're like, no, you don't understand. That means we need to crack you open and take out a piece of your brain. I'm like, do it. And they're like, no, we don't just do that. We do that when you die or if we need to take out a piece of your brain for some other reason. I'm like, oh, okay. So then as we were going in for that second part of the surgery, I looked at them. I'm like, you're going to test us for the tau proteins now, right, too? And they're like, oh, yeah, we forgot about that. I'm like, don't forget about that.
Yeah.
I want to know. If that's a problem, I want to know.
Yeah.
It's not.
Negative? Okay.
Negative. So that's good. But no, so that was that. So the surgery was in January of 13. And then I slowly worked myself off the drugs. The medications, not the, again, so drinking and driving on two wheels is bad. Drugs are bad too.
And so were you encouraged to get off the medication by the medical staff?
Yes.
Or was this something that you were like, because the side effects of seizure medication isn't that great either. Was it a decision that you both came to together, or you were like, I'm done with these drugs? And
no, it was the neurologist and the neurology team that I work with, or that works with me, however you want to say it. They've been great. They've been slowly weaning me off my medication. And like when you watch a TV at night and you see the Cialis commercial or the whatever commercial, and it's some guy sitting in a bathtub on a hillside. And it's like this beautiful scene, and then it's like it's fine print on the end, like side effects might include
anal leakage.
Yeah, exactly. I was having every single side effect that was on the bottle. Anal leakage, Mick, was not
it's
on my bottle.
Not that I know personally. I've just heard that if you take some medications, that can happen.
And one of those, some of those side effects were anger, were depression, were irritability. And then they also told me before they did the surgery that, hey, by the way, taking out this part of the brain, you're probably going to see an increase in anger, irritability, and depression. I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm fine, because I'm macho, but like I wasn't. So like I had this massive load of drugs in me. I had this surgery, and then they ripped away my career. And yes, they ripped it away from me because
literally,
I wanted to serve, and I was told I'm incapable. And so that all hurt. And then I was in the civilian career fields. I was trying to make it as a non-military guy, and my wife decided to leave me, and that further pushed me down into the rock bottom. At which time, a good friend of mine who used to be a coach for the Air Force Wounded Warrior program got a hold of me and said, hey, they're coming to Offutt. You're down the road. At the time I was living in Lincoln. Go. Just see it. Be part of the program. Get to know them. Like you're still allowed to do this. Go do this. And I was hesitant at first, but I finally went out there, and because I'm like, I'm just missing part of my brain. Like I'm going to be competing against people who are missing legs, who can't see, who were shot and blown up in combat. Like my brain didn't work right, and they had to refix it. And she's like, and she explained how that's not what it is, that it's adaptive sports, that there's different categories, that I would be competing against other individuals who had similar illnesses as I did. And so I finally went out and got involved. And then through the program, as I mentioned, there are different components that you can do, and sports is just one of them. But a lot of it is also teaching how to heal and how to work with yourself, to understand yourself. I should have earmarked it, but as I was flipping through your book earlier, Mick, one of the quotes really stuck out, and it had to do with the individual who can understand himself, conquers himself. And it just reading, I was like, that's a lot of what the AFW2 program preaches, and how it teaches individuals to fight their demons by identifying what they are, and then understanding that you're not, you're a macho guy, but you can't fight this alone, and it's okay to show your weakness or what you view as weakness to help overcome it, and then by overcoming it, you grow, you heal. And then one thing that the Air Force program preaches is hugs. So we say hugs heal, which is where I became a hugger. Brings us back around to Prince Harry.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a common theme, though, among warriors that they don't want to admit that they're wounded.
No.
I think just the warrior ethos and pride and all that. We know a lot of people with PTSD, unfortunately, and they're silently wounded. A lot of them don't show visible scars, and it's definitely I think it's probably near an epidemic, and I think it's great when people heal and people use other people to heal too. So
exactly,
it's a very cool thing that you're doing.
Yep,
very cool.
No, so and that's another reason I continue my involvement in other adventures too. I am, as I mentioned, I'm a civil engineer. And I have been a 15-year member now of the Society of American Military Engineers, which the cool thing about our society is you don't have to be in the military, you don't have to be an engineer, and you don't even have to be an American to be in the society. We have Japanese lawyers that are in the society. They work with American engineering or design firms, construction firms, but they're still in the society because they're here to help the betterment of and the national security of the USA. And I sit on the board here in Omaha for our local post as our military and veteran outreach program coordinator. And one of the things I like to do is get out and work with some of the entities here around town that are doing different events. So whether that be the Patriot Guard Riders or the Project Healing Waters fly fishing organization, where they do a lot of work with the local homeless VA home. I'm forgetting the name. I want to say it's the Liberty House, but I can't remember for sure.
I'll look it up and put it in the show notes.
It's they go out and teach these individuals visible and invisible wounds, some as far back as World War II, how to fly fish and how that activity of fishing gets your mind off of what you've been fighting, what you've been, what's been hurting you, what's been holding you down, and how just casting a fly takes your mind off of it, and then the fight, the competition of bringing in a fish, basically with your hands. That just it helps. Yeah. And it takes your mind somewhere else for half an hour a day, for 3 hours a day, whatever you're doing. But they do a lot of work with teaching individuals how to tie flies. That right now they're making their own rods, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah,
and it's a national level organization. So they'll pick 1 or 2 rods that are made here locally to send them down to Kansas City for the regional competition, quote unquote. And potentially one of our guys might have his rod submitted into the competition for the national level award, which each level you go up, different prizes come along with it. Last year, our chapter sent 3 individuals out to Colorado for an all expense paid fly fishing guided tour on a 4-day weekend.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah. But you get a chance to talk with these individuals, and most of them are homeless and living in the VA subsidized housing. They're fighting alcoholism, they're fighting their PTSD and other illnesses and ailments. But to see them light up during that time when they're out there on the water is great. And then the clinic I go to for my doctor, my primary care physician is part of that Liberty House system. So every once in a while when I'm in there to see my doctor and I'm waiting in the waiting room, one of them will come walking through and they're like, "Hey, I know you.
Yeah.
And then just see them light up too, because it's like, oh yeah, like you're a friendly face. And
so how do these programs get funded?
It depends. So the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program is funded through the Department of the Air Force. They have funding set aside, and all the services have funding set aside for different programs, for educational, for outreach, for training camps. By law, a permanently retired individual cannot receive funding from the Department of the Air Force, the Department of the Navy, whatever service you're in. For the Air Force at that time, a nonprofit called the Air Force Association steps up, and they help to provide funding in terms of travel or lodging or even some per diem to get members to and from these different camps, these different adaptive training sites. We call them care events with the Air Force, and so that's one way. They receive a lot of their funding, a lot of their support from different members of the Air Force or private organizations. Deloitte is a huge company that supports that. Amazon Military has provided some support. I know the Semper Fi Fund, Team Red, White, Blue, they'll all help each other out here.
So this is a law for every branch in the military, not just specific to the Air Force?
Correct. So the Department of the Navy cannot use Navy appropriated funds to send a permanently retired member to one of these events.
Seems kind of fucked up to me.
Interesting. I guess they figure the money would be better used somewhere else, but
I hope.
Well, so to help kind of put it into perspective, one of our events, the event we had here in July in Omaha at Hufford Air Force Base, 150 men and women, both active duty or retired, came out to the event. Of that 150, 130 roughly were active duty members, whether that was guard reserve or true active duty, but they were still serving in uniform, going through the med board process, having completed it and being allowed to and being retained. There's a lot of good guys. One of them, he was our team captain this year for Invictus, and he just graduated last week. He just graduated from the First Sergeant's Schoolhouse down in Maxwell. He's a K9. Well, technically now he's a First Sergeant, which is like he's one of the head guy of a squadron to help with the personnel issues, for the manning issues. He's the mom, if you will, of the squadron. Taking care of the stuff while Dad, the big bad squadron commander, is off leading, right? But he lost his leg in the same attack that ultimately killed his canine in Afghanistan. So he has a prosthetic, but he's still in uniform serving and still able to deploy because he was able to prove that loss of a limb was not enough to hinder his ability to serve.
Wow.
So you have individuals like that who still qualify for the program,
right.
Yeah,
and they're active duty. So appropriated Air Force funds are being used to bring members like him to and from these events.
Gotcha.
Whereas retired guys and girls are receiving a paycheck, presumably from the VA, and potentially have other jobs.
Okay.
So
you found this Wounded Warrior project kind of in a bad time in your life. What did it look like moving forward? Did you take to it right away?
It was slow at first.
Okay.
That first event I attended here in Omaha, I only went for about 3 hours.
Okay.
A week-long program, I only went for about 3 hours. A lot of that had to do with my job at the time. They didn't want me out of the office, so I kind of snuck away.
Okay.
But I went, and then a year later, they called and they said, "Hey, we're coming back to Omaha. Do you want to come out again?" And excuse me. So about a year later, they called and said, "Hey, we're coming back to Omaha. Do you want to come out?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I was with a different company again, and I was able to attend the entire week, and it just something clicked. And that first week was actually I learned, it was when I took my ambassador training course, so I didn't do any sports. But just learning how to tell my story taught me a lot about what my story was. And it identified a lot of the dark spots, a lot of the sad spots. But then being able to identify that and talk about that with friends, but then be able to talk about that and then have to share it with strangers.
Yeah.
It took a lot, but it felt good doing it. Like it helped relieve some of that burden. It took off some of that pain. And so then I went to another event a couple weeks later or a couple months later and got to do the sport aspect of it and getting back into competitive sports. Like something was ignited in me. And so at that time, they're like, oh, hey, by the way, like we have the Warrior Games, which I knew about. And that was one of the things my friend had told me that I should do because she's like, you'd be great at this. Like, you'd win golds. And then it was at that second event where they were like, oh, hey, and by the way, if you're good enough, you can go to the Invictus Games. And that's the international version. I'm like, well, forget the Warrior Games. I don't want to do those at all. It's just. And then I was like, where are they? I'm like, well, this year. So last year they were in Toronto. I'm like, Canada, whatever. And they're like, but next year they're in Sydney. I'm like, done. What do I have to do to make that team? And they're like, well, just practice hard, train hard, practice hard, compete, and heal. So that's what I did.
Okay. So so going into this, I'm assuming that I don't know the exact time frame, but I'm assuming you kind of were out of shape. Or did you ever really get out of shape?
Oh, no, I was out of shape.
Out of shape. So you go from out of shape to looking to train to compete internationally.
Yes.
What did that process look like?
So, I'd already started training again. After I finished playing football, I swore off barbells. I was like, I am never going to pick up a weight again. I'm done with this. Being in the Air Force, I had to maintain some level of physical standard. We have our annual or biannual physical fitness test, and so I had to be able to do so many push-ups, so many sit-ups, run a mile and a half, and have my waist measurement below whatever it needed to be for my age. Those were always the worst weeks leading up to it. A lot of starvation and sleeping with Preparation H saran wrapped around your belly to help suck that in, and you finish the test and you're like, sweet. Eat a dozen donuts.
Yeah.
But after I got out of the Air Force, I really let myself go, and then with the divorce, I really let myself go, and I went from about 270 pounds to 350 pounds in what seemed like overnight. And then I started a job working for a framing company here in Omaha, and one of my first days in the office, I heard a lot of banging and clanging in the bay next to me. And finally went over there to figure out what was going on. And it turned out to be a gym. And the individual that owned the gym had been teaching physics at Concordia High School and running their after-school weightlifting club, and had decided that he no longer wanted to teach, but wanted to own and run and operate a gym. So he started Testify Strength and Conditioning. And very faith-based in their approach to just human relations, but it's with the starting strength theory and philosophy of how to train.
Okay.
So it's all barbell. There's no cardio machine in the house, which I'm not a treadmill guy, and I was like, I'm not really sure about this weightlifting thing. I mean, I used to do it, but whatever. And so he convinced me to come out and start doing it, and I liked it. And it felt good to get back under the bar, but then to be in that community, to be in that around an environment of other athletes, of other, and like we're talking like moms, like 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. One of the individuals in there, it's Phil's dad, or Phil's grandfather-in-law. His dad lives too, but his grandfather-in-law is 84 years old now, and he's in there 3 days a week, squatting, benching, deadlifting. Oh, it's crazy. But the theory, the philosophy behind this is keeping weight on the body through training exercises helps maintain and increase your life, both in a physical spirit, but then a mental spirit. There's the 4 pillars of life. There's the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the financial. That's everyone has to have some component of those pillars to live. And he's testifies touching on at least 3 of them, in my opinion. And they're taking from my 4th.
Yeah.
You're helping them build the 4th.
Exactly. Yeah. So I had already started doing that type of training. And then when it came into, okay, now we're going to do, bench press. Now we're going to do shot put. I'm like, well, I'm doing power cleans. I'm doing bench press. I'm squatting. So like muscle mass is coming back on. And then it was just a matter of regaining that flexibility, that balance, and then the movements, going through those motions again. I hadn't picked up a shot put in close to 20 years.
So you did in high school?
Yes,
okay.
Did in high school. So yeah, it had been a while, and here I am picking it up for the first time and throwing, and like, okay, like it knocked the rust off, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay. And the coaches that the coaches that we bring in for the adaptive sports training camps, they're amazing. Most of them are currently on some type of Olympic committee, whether it be as a coach or they themselves are previous Olympians, or we actually just lost our head throws coach to go to be the head throws coach for Paralympic, the U.S. Paralympic Committee. So she's running the training site out in San Diego now. So it's like, great, like good for you, but what about me?
Yeah.
But all right, yeah, good for you. So we bring in these excellent, amazing coaches, a lot of credentials, and they start identifying what different individuals are capable of doing, and they're like, okay, Rob, let's try something, and they start tweaking different things, and I'm doing some side drills, and then it starts clicking and getting together.
What genius said, let's try sailing? Let's take you from being the center of a football team and put you on a boat.
I did, actually, Mick.
Really?
Yeah. So I was being a bit of a smartass at the time, which for those of you that know me is pretty much all the time. But no, we got the list. And so the Invictus squad it's supposed to be a 72-person roster made up of equal parts of the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, and then Special Operations. And Special Operations are made up of all the services, but it's specifically guys that were doing unspeakable things in dark places. But I got the roster of what all the sports were and who was doing them. And I looked at it, and there was no names on the sailing team. 0. They had identified nobody to sail. And I was talking with one of the team leads, and I was like, hey, Marcia, nobody's on this team. I still have extra sports that I can do. I'll sail. She's like, have you ever sailed before? I was like, no, but I'll learn. And she's like, sure, whatever. So she put me on the team.
Nice.
So how did you learn to sail in Nebraska?
I didn't.
Okay.
So as a team, we spent 2 weeks in Australia for a week before competition and a week of competition. And then before that, as a team, we spent 1 week in California, just north of LA. And I learned how to sail there.
3 weeks of training before a World Games.
Yes. And we came in 4th.
That's awesome.
So it was a 4-person team. We had 3 airmen, myself and 2 other Air Force guys. And then we had 1 Marine lady, one Marine girl.
Had anyone sailed?
Our skipper had previous experience on like a little 6-foot Sunny. And we were on a 22-foot racing boat. I mean, this thing is made for speed. It's pretty much sold exclusively in Australia, or used exclusively in Australia and New Zealand. So like we didn't even get a chance to train on it before we went down there. The yacht club that taught us how to sail found the most comparable thing they could find here in the States.
I'd love to know the expression on that skipper's face when he reads this roster, like, no sailing, no sailing, no sailing.
Oh, they were
screwed.
They were scared because we had a safety officer ride with us. So it was the 4 of us on the team, and then an Australian safety officer. And he met us for the first time. He's like, "Okay, so what have you guys done before?" And we're like, "Nothing. We all just basically stepped on this boat last week." And he's like, "So cumulatively, you have 10 hours of sailing." Great. All right. So he helped coach us. We went out for one practice session out in the harbor the day before competition. And at the end of it, he was like, "You guys aren't bad." Well, you're a darn good coach. Thanks for training us.
Yeah.
There's got to be something cool, though, about just going into that, like, fuck it. Yeah. We're going to give it this a lash and let's see how it goes. And,
it's fun.
You don't know kind of what's in store for you, and you're just willing to do it anyway. That's the warrior spirit right there.
That is. Absolutely. Uh-huh. So this was 2018, the Invictus Games, correct?
Yes.
Do they have that every year?
They used to. They have now. 2018 was the last yearly Invictus Games. They're going to go to every other year. So the next games will not be until 2020 May, and that's going to be in the Netherlands. It's called The Hague. Okay. I don't know why they put the on it. It's a lot like the Ohio State University, I guess.
You gonna compete in that? You got goals for that?
The goal is to compete there. Yes.
Okay.
So I actually take off here in a couple weeks to go to Las Vegas to try out for the Air Force team for this year's Warrior Games. If I make that squad, that's going to give me some more time with training, with coaching staff, with the Air Force program, to increase my numbers and build my resume.
Yeah.
To then try out for the IG team next year.
So will they decide which events you're going to do, or do you still have a hand in all that too?
So this year, I have put my name in the hat to be the ultimate champion representative for the Air Force male division for the Warrior Games. So at the Warrior Games, again, there's a couple of different team sports and about 9, I think, 8 or 9, depends on what they're competing. Like last year was in Colorado Springs. You can't sail in Colorado Springs. You can ski, but you can't sail. So they didn't have sailing. But this year it's in Tampa, so they might have sailing. But you're only allowed to compete in 3 individual sports and 2 team sports. Or you can be the male or female representative for your team in what they call the Ultimate Champion, which is an individual who does one event in each of the 8 individual sports.
Okay.
So it's just the 100-meter dash, just the shot put, just the air rifle, at a set distance, at a set position. And you compete against other individuals in your category, and then how you place, how you finish in each of your heats gives you a point number, a point value. At the end of the week, they sum up all of your points, and whoever has the most points is considered the ultimate champion of the event.
Okay.
So I've put my name in the hat, and I've talked with the head coach, and they're hoping.
So how many events? 8?
8. So it's a shot put, 100-meter dash, 50-meter freestyle swim, a time trial road bike race, the 1-minute row. Again, that's land-based on a machine. Air rifle, archery, and powerlifting.
Okay.
So I'll do one event in each of those, and it's it's just the 100-meter dash. Whereas other people will do the 100, the 200, the 400, and the 800.
Gotcha. Okay.
And be allowed to run on the relays.
Okay.
Swimming is the 500 free, the 100 free, and then the 50 butterfly and the 50 back.
Okay.
So I can't do any of those other sports or those other events, but I get to do 8 individual of all of them.
So you divide your time in a week training in each of those events, hoping that you might get picked? Or does that training even start yet?
The training, don't tell my coaches, Mick. But
they're going to hear it.
I love you, Callie. No, so it's too much. It is too much to train in all of them. So we've talked as an athlete coach staff, where it's, hey, what are you good at, and where do we want to emphasize our training? Where do we want to put some training to and hope that we can snag a few points, and then what are we just going to phone in?
Got it.
And for me, they're like, yeah, the road race, I just want you to be able to pedal the 5 miles and we'll call it a day.
Yeah.
Like, just get across the line. I don't care if that means you walk it.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, you need to win bench press. So emphasize that. And then through my weight training, that really pushes my shot put. And the weight training itself helps my rowing, but I don't get the cardio aspect of it. So then I do have to get some rowing in throughout the week. And then, those are all explosive sports, whereas archery and shooting are more of a resting, a finesse. So then it's just, training of, hey, can you draw a bow and hold it for 5 seconds? And we have some bands in the gym that I'll do some activity with that just to help kind of get that feeling down, just get that hold, that locked position.
I feel like, with a little bit of training, you could really do air rifle and archery,
So I grew up outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, on a small farm, and did 4-H. One of the 4-H clubs I was in was the gun and rod club.
Okay.
So I learned how to shoot on a 22. We did pistol training. We did skeet and shotgun training. And then once we got to a certain age, we were allowed to do bow. So I've done a lot of this stuff. And then through the Air Force, through the military, you have to shoot.
Right.
It's a completely different rifle.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, we're talking 6 different ways that you can modify it by the millimeter to raise it or lower it or lengthen it or shorten it, whatever, for all the different components of each person's body.
We're in a building where there's probably some guys that can help you with your shooting.
I was going to say, we know a couple guys that could shoot us from a couple miles away.
Yeah. Well, and I did bring my 9mm to shoot later.
All right.
So whenever we're done here, if you guys want to go show me what you can do, I'm all in.
Show you the ninja magic.
So kind of transitioning away from sports, this all happened, but also you kind of found your way back, not so much back into the Air Force, but working for the Air Force again, correct?
Correct. And it was via the AFW2 program, via the Wounded Warrior program here that I found my way back into employment at Offutt Air Force Base. I was giving a speech, an ambassador talk at one of the events here in July, and one of the individuals, one of the leadership members on base, came up and found me afterwards, and we started talking. And we never met each other, but we have similar backgrounds, and he knew a lot of my prior commanders. And then it came out that I was looking for employment. And he's like, well, heck, we have jobs on base, so we need you. Next thing I know, I have a job offer. And they brought me out to be a civil engineer, civilian for the Air Force. And I got to Offutt for my first day of work. And they're like, hey, we're so glad you're here. Go fix our airfield. I'm like, excuse me? They're like, yeah. Our runway's broken. Fix it. That's okay, sure. Funny, sir. Haha. But no, they'd been working for years to get the runway replaced. Not just repaired, but replaced. And it's a big job. There's a lot of different components, a lot of different individuals that have to do work across the base. And they pegged me as the POC for the installation to be the engineering lead. To work with the different entities on base and off base, whether that be a civilian contractor or other Air Force entities that are helping us. And just recently, it was identified that we are going to get a full replacement.
Nice.
Which is huge news for not only the base but the community.
Yeah.
And it further shows that Offutt's not going anywhere. Right. It's going to be here another 30 to 40 years minimum.
Yeah.
So right now, isn't the plan that flights are going to fly out of the National Guard base in Lincoln?
Yes. So depending on when this airs, Mick, we are today in the midst of final negotiations to sign the lease contract with the Lincoln Airport to operate out of their space. So we'll fly out of there for about a year. Operations will move down there, and we'll demolish the entire runway, take it down about 3 or 4 feet, and start from scratch and build it up.
And for people kind of unaware, I mean, I've lived in Omaha now for 20 years, and I remember when I first came here, they were saying they needed to replace this airport or runway.
Yes. So I'm going to get the years mixed up, but basically every 10 years they do a runway repair. And they've been calling it a 20-year fix every time they've done it, but they did it in 85, 93, and 2006. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's just 20-year repair, but it's getting you 10 years. And here we are, 2019, and they've been working it for 4 years now. So they identified it at the 10-year point as we need to get this fixed. But as a base, they fought it and said, no, we can no longer do this repair. We need to do it. We need to do a full replacement.
Yeah.
So to get the full replacement, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And they for the most part, we have to be good stewards of the government's money, of the taxpayers' dollar. We don't just do this willy-nilly at any base.
I'll bet. No.
I mean, there's one, maybe two that get done a year, maybe, that go through a major overhaul like this. Major repairs, yeah, those happen. But a major overhaul like at this level is very rare.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're approaching an hour. I did have kind of one more question, just going back to Wounded Warrior. And I like to ask this, when we have veterans and, I don't know, what can we do for folks, Wounded Warriors, people suffering PTSD? What as civilians can we do to help that cause?
Sure. So, I mean, I guess to help, there's two ways I could answer that one. One, just be timely with us. Personally, I'm at a loss for words at times. Mm-hmm. I probably doesn't sound like that here on the podcast, but there are times where I can't come up with a word, and it might be a minute. I'm thinking about it, and I could give you a very explicit description of a paperclip, but I can't say the word paperclip because I can't do it. Other individuals, their wounds, whether visible or invisible, they're really shy. They're really quiet. They're not good with people, or for whatever reason it may be. Be timely with us. Take your time. Don't just throw us off. If you're talking with somebody, and they're a vet and they're really hesitant at first, give it a second. Okay. Be nice, be gentle. They might come around, they might not. And then if you want to help, go find a volunteer activity, whether it be at the VA center, down on base, wherever it may be. There are plenty of veteran organizations out there that you can volunteer your time with just to go spend some time. Go to the VA retirement home and sit down and just listen to the World War II gunny sergeant just share his stories.
Oh yeah,
that you're gonna hear some amazing stories.
Oh
yeah, but just him or her having that experience of being able to relive those events, that's just gonna brighten their day. Get out with Project Healing Waters and go just help. Just be there to help make sure somebody doesn't fall in the water. You don't have to be a fisherman to go. Okay. You don't even have to be a fly fisherman. Just go and just be there. Listen, help, support, however you want to do it.
Awesome. I think locally, we're fortunate in Nebraska that there are lots of groups that organize activities for veterans and support families, and maybe we can list a couple of those. I know I recently ran into, I think it was last year at one of the fights, Vets for Outdoors, Lincoln-based organization that takes vets hunting.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe we can dig up a couple of these organizations and list them.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago I was out in Cozad playing a show for Miles for Heroes. That's what they do. They take vets on free hunting trips. And then there's another one. I'll look it up. Another guy that I met that has a similar one called Veterans Hunting or something that does the same exact thing, takes veterans on hunting trips. So we'll try to look up some of these organizations that you can potentially help and put them in the show notes so that you can check those out there. So we'll go ahead and transition to our book of the week and our workout of the week, and we'll probably come back, roll back to Rob and wrap up with that. But let's go ahead and get those out of the way real quick. Mick, you got the book today?
I do, and it's kind of a good timing. The book is Recovery: Freedom from Our Addictions by Russell Brand. How I came across this book is obviously as a coach, I'm always looking at ways to make myself a better coach. And I was kind of brainstorming one night thinking, man, is there like a phenomenal coaching program? Like, what is the best? What's the toughest coaching job? And I kind of feel bad about how it came to me because my basement is an Irish pub. I was sitting downstairs in my basement just brainstorming, and I'm drinking a beer, and I had this epiphany that probably the most powerful coaching program in the world is probably AA, where you take people who are absolutely broken and turn them back into productive members of society. Mm-hmm. So I got a hold of the 12-step program. I started to read it, and I just couldn't grasp. I just wasn't doing it for me. And I just kind of let it sit. And then I watched an interview with Russell Brand, who I'm not like a huge fan of, but he was talking about his recovery from addiction. And, he's a funny guy. So I picked up his book, and it's a powerful, funny at times, and horrible look into addiction and how to overcome it. I'd first read, he has another book called My Bookie Wook, mm-hmm. Which is basically a book about how awesome he believes he is. And so I kind of picked up this book, and I wasn't building myself up to really like it. But basically it's the 12 steps and to explore their application to a problem that not just befalls addicts or alcoholics, but universal masses. So for those of you that don't know Russell Brand's story, he was addicted to everything. Heroin, alcohol, porn, the internet. He was spending massive amounts of time on the internet. He obviously was famously and briefly married to Katy Perry and screwed that one up too. There's some really good gems in there about how he dealt with his addictions. Some really powerful stories of the people that he met. He is an egomaniac, and obviously it's his story. But the way that he describes the 12 steps, I think, are just very relatable to the average person. I mean, his approach to the 12 steps are, am I fucked? How did I get fucked, and can I unfuck myself, basically? But it's a great read. If you take his ego out of it and you just listen to what addiction has done to somebody who almost lost it all. I mean, obviously he's a multi-millionaire and a media star, but addiction can touch everybody. You're not immune to it if you have money. If you're married to one of the hottest women in the world, you're not immune from it. And so if the religion part of the 12-step program kind of turns some people away, I think what Russell Brand's book does is it gives you his reason of why spirituality is important in your recovery, and kind of surrendering yourself to a higher power, and letting you know that there's forces other than yourself, and that may be just the group of people that you're in NA or AA or whatever, but that it's going to take a lot of people all chipping in, and then you doing the work yourself to to get you to beat this disease. Russell Brand, Recovery, Freedom from Our Addictions.
Awesome. I haven't read that one. I'll be interested to check that out. So for the workout of the week, I have been kind of training up to do the Murph challenge. I want to do the Murph challenge this year. And so I've been trying to get my body kind of prepared for that. So the workout this week is kind of along those lines. I did this one last week. So what you're going to do, you're going to put on a 20-pound weight vest. And if you have a Woodway treadmill, I'd prefer you use that. But if not, just a regular treadmill. What you're going to do is you're going to run a quarter mile with that weight vest on. You're going to do 10 pull-ups and you're going to do 10 dips. Now I did my dips on the side of the ring. If you want to do them on the bars, that's fine. My shoulders aren't great, so I don't do them on the bars. But you're going to run a quarter mile, 10 pull-ups, 10 dips, and you're going to do that 4 times. So that's the workout of the week. And actually tomorrow I'm going to double that. I'm going to do it 8 times through. So you end up running, if you do the basic, you're going to do a mile run altogether with a 20-pound weight vest. You're going to do 40 pull-ups and 40 dips. And if you are moving pretty quickly, you should be able to get this done in around 20 minutes, maybe a little over 20 minutes for the single mile. But yeah, we'll see how long it takes me to do 2 miles tomorrow. So that is your workout of the week. We'll post that in the show notes on thegentlemanbadass.com.
One thing I forgot to mention about the book.
Okay.
Whether you like Russell Brand or not, he's been sober for 15 years.
Okay.
So I should add that in, so that he is definitely one of the success stories, and he has used his money and his influence to help highlight spotlight the kind of the plight of addiction.
Awesome. So we will have all of that on the show notes at thegentlemanbadass.com. You can sign up for the mailing list there. You can look at our merch. We've got some hats. We've got the Mindset Journal that Rob was talking about. It's got some inspirational quotes on the top of every page along with lines, so you can keep track of your workout. You can write down your thoughts, really anything. You can do that with a little inspiration at the top of each page. Patreon. Check us out on Patreon. You can help support the podcast for as little as $1 a month, and we've got some bonuses that we're going to be adding to that. So some exclusive content and video and instructional videos and whatnot that we'll be adding to Patreon. YouTube, yeah, check us out. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Like this video, subscribe, and the same with just the podcast providers. Subscribe to this podcast. Leave us a rating. Leave us a
review on iTunes. Yeah.
But if you leave a negative review, make sure you include your address and a picture so that Mick can find you. And then also, we actually just received some really cool gifts this month.
Have that one.
These look really sweet, guys.
These are by Etched Designs Omaha. So if you can't tell, that's actually wood that has been etched. It's really sweet. So Etched Designs Omaha, wanted to give a shout out to them.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
that was
thank you, John.
Really cool gift.
These are sweet. That artwork, by the way, is by Dominic Holmes of Big Brain. The sketch of Mick. If you can't tell, that's Mick right there with putting his dukes up. Artwork by Dominic Holmes. So thanks, Dominic, for that, and then thanks Etched Designs Omaha for those gifts. Rob, thank you so much for coming on. I knew a little bit about your story, and it was really cool to kind of hear the details. And what's cool is, you were riding high for a while, kind of got knocked down against your will, but you've climbed that ladder back, and you're riding new heights and newly engaged. You mentioned your fiance.
Yes.
Newly engaged to my cousin. So we're going to be family.
We are. And clearly the looks are on that side of the tree.
Probably the brains too.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you the story of Heidi? So this is back when we were a kid. My mom, Heidi, and Jeremy came to stay with us. Jeremy is her brother.
Right.
Our cousins came to stay with us for the summer, and we had a light bright. And Heidi got a screwdriver, took off the front panel of the light bright, unscrewed the light bulb, and with the thing plugged into the wall, stuck I think it was a fork into the light socket of the light bright. And so all of a sudden, and I think the lights went out, and she like blew the tip of the fork off. And obviously she was okay. And I don't know. I mean, she's a doctor now.
I say, in between the two of us, she has more years of college than we do.
So, like, yeah, really, she's the genius of the family. But I always thought that was a funny little story. So, thank you so much for coming on.
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate your story, and I really hope it inspires some people to do the same. So check out Wounded Warrior. And if there's anything you can do, any of those suggestions that he gave that you think you can help, do that. It will be greatly appreciated. So, any final words, Mick?
No, I think we kind of hit it earlier on, but I think even those of us who have not served in the military or law enforcement, you are still capable of serving your veterans. And I think it's important that as civilians we reach out, and whether it's just thanking them for their service or taking it a step further and helping them out, whichever way that may be, whether it's donating your time or donating money. I think there's a lot of veterans who deserve better than what they have right now. And
absolutely.
So
we owe them.
That everybody does that.
Yeah, we owe them a lot. So let's all do our part. So Rob, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mick.
For everybody listening, we will talk to you next time.